name is Lee, and now it's time for me to share my quiet time. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Fruitful Friday, woo! Where I share my quiet time nuggets with y'all. We went the scenic route, okay? We have the lovely natural water sounds in the background, okay? It's almost evening time. We're ready to get in God's word, okay? Let's do it. Today's Fruitful Friday is going to be found in Philippians chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. And today we're going to be reading in the NLT version, the New Living Translation. It's, you know how usually, like, these earrings they're giving right now? We're in the Living Translation. Okay, let's go. Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stay true to the Lord. I love you and long to see you, dear friends, for you are my joy and the crown I receive for my work. We're going to go ahead and stop there for now. Okay, so Paul refers to the Philippian church as the crown he receives for his work. And I was like, okay, what does it mean by crown there? Like, I know what a crown is, but like, why does he use that term specifically to refer to the Philippian church? I did a little bit of research and I thought about it a bit. When someone gets a crown, that usually means their status has been lifted a bit. Like, think about whenever, like, let's say there becomes a new prince or a new princess, right? They crown them, right? And suddenly their life goes from ordinary plain Jane, plain John, to royalty, right? And so their status has been lifted from somebody with maybe little influence to somebody with a lot of influence. They have a lot of sway in other people's lives. A crown is also what a person that owns a crown would probably consider their greatest possession, because a crown is probably very expensive. So I came to the conclusion that because Paul poured out his heart and worked to spread the gospel, God blessed him with a whole church, because Paul was actually the one who started the Philippian church in the first place. So what I got out of that, for what I want to go after, is that I want to work as hard as Paul did, you know? Consider going out and making disciples the most important work. Not so that I can be glorified, but God can be glorified. And that crown that I'll receive can ultimately show God's glory. So let's continue into verses 2 and 3. Now I appeal to Euodia and Syntyche. Please, because you belong to the Lord, settle your disagreement. And I ask you, my true partner, to help these two women, for they worked hard with me in telling the others the good news. They worked along with Clement and the rest of my co-workers, whose names are written in the book of life. So somebody beefing. We got Euodia and Syntyche, okay? They had some beef. It wasn't like rare beef. It was like well done beef. They had some beef they needed to settle. And in the footnotes, actually, my true partner has an asterisk next to it, and it says loyal Syzygus. And that person was to help them squash that beef, essentially. And so I was like, first of all, who is Syzygus, or this guy who I can't even pronounce his name? Who is he? And why is he helping these women settle their beef? Okay, who is it? On doing research, and extensive research at that, I came up to the conclusion that Paul was referring to the church as a whole. He was referring to the disciples in that church, and not a specific person. Because if you think about it, the NLT version calls him my true partner. And Paul wasn't married at this time, so it's not like he had a partner in the gospel, like a set partner in the gospel, if you think about it. Everyone he worked with, his co-workers, were his partners in the gospel. So every one of them was considered that loyal Syzygus guy. So aside from the fact that the women were called to settle their issues and get unified, for the sole reason, might I add, the only reason, it literally says, because you belong to the Lord. Like, that was his only reason, his only prerogative for having them squash that beef, because they belong to the Lord. Aside from the fact that that was the reason they were to settle their issues, because God's church is unified and is not disunified, there's no disunity, okay? There were disciples that were called to help them settle that. It wasn't just them duking it out. At this point, they were kind of at step 2, where they needed to bring somebody in, like their disciplers per se, to like help them get it together, because somebody wasn't apologizing. And at that point, like in Hamilton, it says number 2, if they don't, grab a friend. That's your second, your lieutenant, where there's reckoning to be reckoned. Okay, so as well, something I found interesting was that Paul didn't talk talk bad about his sisters in the faith. And he actually lifted them up for being workers. He lifted them up for working hard for the gospel and spreading the good news. And just because they were having this beef, this hard time, he didn't look at them any certain way. He's like, no, they're having this bad time. All they need to do is reconcile and we can continue, right? Because Paul understood that no work can get done. No work can get done for God if there's disunity. And so that's all he wanted, was for them to be unified so they can all get to preaching the word. So what I got out of this is that I want to take care of the flock by making sure that any situation in my knowledge is taken care of quickly and righteously so that the church stays unified, so that we can all go after the job of getting the nations evangelized in this generation. And if you want to know how to go after working hard for God and getting the job done that he's called us to do, here's my handle right here. Go ahead and DM me and I will get you squared away with a Bible study. And you can learn all about what you need to do right here. So that was Fruitful Friday, and to God be all the glory.